Now that I have reworked the front surface of my blade and I need to work on my water stone, I've moved my machine over, kept my water stone set down. See, I've been doing some work on the water stone already. Please make sure that you keep your water stone flat. This is one of the most important things that we can do as sharpeners, making sure that this thing stays flat. And we get a towel out as well, so I can do a little bit of work on the stone if need be to keep it cleaned off. And when I put my blade on the stone, I am going to set my blade down about a 45-degree angle or so across the block. I'm going to start by putting my first finger on my left hand here, first finger on my right hand here. These two fingers are just guides, and I'm going to pull back towards myself to pull any burrs away. This is where people have trouble with left-handed shears because they're so used to doing everything on this side. When they switch to this side, it's a very uncomfortable spot to be in. Well, that's just something that you have to work on. Get a used or an old true left-handed shear, get your water stone out, and just practice and get a feel for it. Takes a little bit of time. I still feel very awkward with this, even though I've been doing this for a number of years, because I just don't do it that often. So don't get discouraged if it does feel a little wonky to you when you're doing work. That's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. Just make sure that you are using all the proper techniques, which is 45 degrees, pressing down on the screw hole, pressing down just slightly ahead of that on the early entry of the scissor, and these three fingers are a guide, and now we can work back and forth and recreate the inside line on the scissor. Should come out clean all the way up to the tip after a few strokes. So we'll do this about 10, 15 backstrokes. And when I say a backstroke, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that realm. I'm going to come to a complete stop and lift off. I never come off with motion because there's always that possibility you could radius that blade slightly as you pull back. We'll take a look in the light and see how we did. I need to do a little more work out where I can bring the inside line in at the tip, and I need to do a little more work on the inside at the throat. But now that you've seen the actual process of how to do this work, we'll go ahead and shut the video off and we'll get ready to start on the polishing in just a minute. Everything else I'm going to be doing is exactly like we're seeing here, just more time consumed. Alright, now that I've finished working the inside of this blade on my water stone, I am going to reclamp this blade back into the clamp. Remember, the inside needs to be up against the flat inside portion of the head of the clamp. And rotate this around, have it up to full speed. I have put on my polishing pad. Make sure your light is blinking, and we will go ahead and do our polish. Now, I like to make sure that I hit my edge, so I'm going to work back and forth. This is a very forgiving pad. And I'm going to work that back side up towards the spine, up towards that edge, polishing the blade up. I want to make sure that I can see that the trash is coming across the inside of the shear, which means I'm hitting my edge. And I'm using just a little bit of pressure as I run back and forth as well to pull any additional burr that might be left over from the sharpening process off of the blade. I'm going to rotate this around and take a look at the work. The convexing looks good. So we will shut this down, take this out, wipe this blade off, and now we're ready to move on to our next blade, which we will do on the Okami Gold system with the Okami convexing clamp. Now that I have worked on my first blade, I am going to go ahead and do the work that I need to do on my second blade. I have my Okami Gold convexing clamp, and I have taken the time as well to switch my wheels on my Okami Gold twice as sharp. I moved the diamond wheel to the right hand side of the machine, and I took the polishing wheel that's on this side, you'll see that in just a moment, and moved it over to the left hand side of the machine. This way I can do the work on the shear like I normally would on a right-handed shear, but it's in just a mirrored position in this way. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my clamp, and I'm going to set my blade down in the clamp. I want to clamp about halfway over the pivot hole, with the pivot hole in this case all the way to the left side of the mouth of the clamp. I'm going to set that blade in reasonably straight, and what I mean is the cutting edge of the blade needs to be reasonably straight with the top of the clamp. and I have my clamp set for about 42, 45 degrees, where the bottom part of the stop block meets the upright. That's where you set your angle by. So we'll do a quick scratch test and see where we're at. And we'll do a slight adjustment up to about 45, and we'll go ahead and start the sharpening process. Now, all I'm doing is the same as what I would do on the Okami Gold convexing clamp video, and I'll include a link in the bottom of this video down here on YouTube and on my blog on Gymsharp, so that you can watch that. But all I'm doing is I'm just making a pass across the wheel until I bring up a burr. I'm going to do that as many times as it takes to form the burr on the blade. In this particular case, the shear has also been sharpened at a little bit too low of a degree. It was probably sharpened just a little bit below 45, and when I saw that, I decided I wanted to bring it all the way up to the angle that I wanted. That's why I had to spend a little extra time as well on the flat hone. It was probably sharpened at about 35 degrees, and this shear should actually be at about somewhere at least 42 to 45 degrees on the edge. So I'm going to do a little bit of correction to this, and then we'll come back. Now that I have done the work on the blade and brought my burr up like I wanted to do, I am now going to start the step-up process of actually faceting the front surface of the blade. Faceting the blade means that I'm just cutting multiple angles across the front of the portion of the blade, and what that's going to do is allow me, when I work on the polishing wheel on the opposite side, to round those little peaks of any of the angles off and round out the surface all the way down to the edge. So now I'm going to rotate this up, and I'm going to start at the throat. I'm going to work my way up to the tip. I'm going to rotate just a little bit more and hit again. Oops, and hit again. I'm going to rotate just a little bit more and hit again. And I'm going to do that one more time. And you can see that each time I went up. So I'm creating an angle, an angle, an angle, and an angle as I go up the face of the scissor. And you can see how I'm starting to, well, it's tough to see in the video. Let's see if I can get that to focus in. I'm starting to facet that front surface to round that back in. I'm going to continue that until I have a nice, even angle from small angle, just another small angle. I had quite a bit of an angle on the front surface of this blade. I'm going to come back to this in just a minute. But because I had such a large amount of work I had to do to correct the improper angle on this blade to begin with, I need to do a little extra work on the faceting portion of this. So we'll come back to this in just a sec. Now that I've done the faceting portion on this blade, what I had to do is I had to make about, step up, do about 3 or 4 passes or so on one angle, move up, do the same thing 2 or 3 times until I actually get into the face of this scissor enough as far as the faceting is concerned, where I'll be able to round it out with the polishing wheel. We'll show you that in just a moment. But we'll remove this from the clamp. We're going to go over to the water stone now.